Divine love and many blessings to you, and welcome. And for those returning, welcome back. Today I want to go into a subject that's very important to me. I love children and I love helping people. And this goes into hidden wounds. It touches the lives of so many people, often in silence, those that are neglected children when they grew up searching for love. So this subject has a profound importance because childhood neglect isn't just something that's tucked away and forgotten about. Like, this really leaves imprints. It's a shadow that follows people into adulthood. It shapes their relationship, how they feel about themselves and their daily choices, even subconsciously. Understanding it can empower people that have gone through it to break free from cycles of pain and grow deeper connections. It can even help in helping them build healthy love that they deserve. Looking at a world where there's a lot of mental health awareness these days, mental health awareness is rising, but I feel like it just doesn't touch the surface, So getting into this, I really hope that helps people to heal and to grow. Have you ever wondered why there are some people that seem to chase love like it's a mirage, only to really pull away when people get too close, or why some people build walls so high that nobody can climb them? This has to do with childhood neglect, especially the emotional kind, where a child's feelings and needs are consistently overlooked and dismissed by their caregiver. That will leave a really deep imprint on their soul. I've seen it so many times before, and I've even gone through a little bit myself. This is where a caregiver might have been physically present, but emotionally really absent. Could be from their own struggles like addiction, mental health illness, or overwhelming life demands. As a result, the child learns early on that their emotions don't matter, that love is unreliable, or that vulnerability is dangerous. It's not about blaming anybody. It's just about understanding the roots of the trauma so that people who've gone through it can actually start to nurture themselves through growth. When neglected children grow into adults, their perspective on love often becomes so distorted, like viewing the world through a cracked mirror lens. One common view is seeing love as something that's really unattainable or causing fear. Imagine growing up feeling invisible, unimportant, nobody really paying attention to the things you care about or your joys, or even when you're sad. As an adult, getting close to someone might feel threatening or even bring about fears of rejection and abandonment. Love becomes something that the person has to earn through constant perfection or self-sacrifice rather than a natural giving and receiving bond. Some who have gone through neglect look at it differently. They'll romanticize it excessively, believing a perfect partner will fill the void left by neglect, leading to unrealistic fantasies or obsessive thoughts that a relationship, will come out, but, it sets them up for disappointment because nothing's really perfect. Another layer is a deep-seated sense of low self-worth. Neglected children internalize the idea that they're not really deserving of attention or care. So in adulthood, love feels like a fragile gift given out of pity or obligation. Self-esteem becomes tethered to this external validation, needing constant reassurance from partners, friends, or even strangers, and this can make every relationship feel like a tightrope walk, where one step means falling into loneliness. And then there's emotional detachment or outright skepticism. I've seen that a lot. Trust, that foundational pillar of love that you need, it crumbles when early bonds are inconsistent. Adults might view affection as superficial, manipulative, or temporary, always questioning someone's motives. Why would anyone care about me? It becomes a subconscious mantra in their mind, leading to this protective being cynical that keeps other people really far away. These warped perspectives often tie back to insecure attachment styles. There's People that are anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, formed in those formative years without a secure emotional base. It's like the heart's blueprint is drawn with invisible ink, only revealing itself in moments of closeness or even in conflict, because some will attract negative attention rather than positive. We'll go into that in a minute. But let's talk about how this trauma shows up in behaviors as adults seek and try to maintain love. It's actions that can create vicious cycles. For some, avoidance reigns supreme. To protect against the pain of potential loss, they become emotionally unavailable, struggling to share feelings or needs. In relationships, it might look like withdrawing during arguments, or prioritizing fierce independence, or sabotaging connections before they deepen. They crave love, but they feel safer in solitude, opting for maybe casual flings over committed bonds. And it's really heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking paradox. The longing for connection battles the fear of it. On the opposite end, we see people that could be clingy, maybe a little obsession or chronic people pleasing. The terror of abandonment drives behaviors like constant texting for reassurance, monitoring their partner's every move, or serial dating without pause. These adults might bend over backwards to accommodate others, ignoring their own boundaries in a desperate attempt to keep the love. But this often breeds resentment within them. It makes them exhausted, even self-sabotage. They might even provoke fights to test loyalty, only to regret it later. Trust and communication suffer immensely in these types of situations too. But there's also a lot of suspicion, and that will manifest in jealousy, hypervigilance, always scanning for signs of betrayal. Expressing emotions, it'll feel kind of foreign because they were never given that. They weren't modeled that in childhood, and it leads them to bottle up feelings that will erupt in misunderstandings or even explosive reactions. In choosing partners, there's often an unconscious pull towards those who mirror the neglect. Emotionally distant or unreliable people that perpetuate that familiar pain. They go for people that treat them the same as when they were little. Beyond those relationships, those patterns ripple into a broader life impact. Think about mental health challenges like depression, anxiety, or even turning to substances for comfort, which emerge as a way to numb the inner emptiness. Even in seemingly stable lives, chronic loneliness will persist, a quiet ache in the heart that says you're still not enough. But here's the light in the darkness. These effects, while powerful, are not one's infinite destiny. They don't have to be. Pathways to healing do exist, and they start with awareness. There's behavioral techniques, or even attachment-focused counseling, which can rewire distorted views. There's also spirituality. If you have a good life coach that can teach you to recognize and challenge old beliefs, build self-awareness through different subconscious readings, or looking into you analytically on a spiritual level to identify triggers and then help you build emotional expression. Surrounding yourself with healthy, supportive people can help also, because it can give you an idea of what secure love looks like, the reciprocal kind and the consistent kind. Imagine reclaiming your life, learning to trust, setting boundaries, and loving without fear. It is possible. It begins with compassion, for that inner child who was overlooked. If this speaks to you, consider reaching out, because you are worthy and you really deserve it. I do want to go into a little bit further about some examples of personal experience, so I can maybe reach you a little bit further if you are someone that saw the title and felt connected to this video. So let's go into that now. Sorry that I'm filming like this. I just got back from the gym. I hope all of you are healthy and happy, and also using this time advantage to get yourselves into good health as warm weather approaches. So looking at the different examples of people that have been neglected, there's many different forms of neglect. Like I said in the beginning, there are people that may have had parents that are there but not emotionally, and then there are parents that aren't there physically because maybe they have to work, or maybe they were absent because they had substance abuse issues. And I know a lot of people that have gone through these situations. I've worked with so many people. I've seen it in my own life. When I was growing up, I had some difficulties with my mom. She had some mental health issues. I remember being a little girl and sitting there and, playing alone. There was nobody. She was very closed off as a person from her own trauma. And that's why I say it's not about blaming people. When you blame, you're holding anger in. You're holding in that toxicity. And that's what really holds you down, is when you look back and you say, I'm this way, or my life is this way because of this person. I always say in my earlier videos, everyone is a victim of a victim. And when you can start to look at life that way, you become forgiving. And I was always like that when I was younger. I could have sat there and said, why don't I have a mom that takes me places? Why don't I have a mom that makes friends with other moms? Why doesn't my mom spend time with me or talk with me or hang out with me? Everything was always on her terms. And she would spend time talking with me, but she didn't like to play, so she wouldn't play. She didn't want to go out in public, so she didn't go out in public. When she was talking, and if I had something to say, it was either bothersome at the time or it didn't matter. So even though she was there, she was in a world of her own. So there's people with mental health issues that are really, messed up, and then there are people that are just trauma inflicted, so they become very self-centered, and the world around them becomes about them because they're seeking. So that's why I said everyone is a victim of a victim. And my mother went through a great amount of traumatic abuse when she was young. And so watching her as a kid, I just knew she was just trying to swallow up any attention or any love she could get all around her. But on the outside, she wasn't giving that back. And so it hurt my father, it hurt me. Yet I was forgiving because I understood. And that's the first part of healing, is understand. Don't carry that toxicity or that heavy weight with you. Try to look back and see, why was that person that way? Everything has a reason, even for parents that are irresponsible, that have substance abuse issues. I've known a lot of those people. They will choose getting high, drinking, women, gambling, or men, whatever. And they'll choose doing what they want to do, what makes them feel good or pleasured, over the better welfare of their children, their family. And from the outside perspective, that looks selfish. It looks like they don't care. But you have to look deeper, and you have to say, why are they doing that? What is it that they are trying to self-fulfill? Because obviously there's something. And it's not right to their family. It's not right to their children, obviously. And it's not an excuse. None of these things are excuses, but it's a start for the person that has been hurt to try to look at things from a different side instead of carrying that resentment and that pain around. Once you see that, then you can start working on yourself. Through a lot of my experiences, my daughter's father, he chose the substance abuse highway over her and wasn't in her life, a great deal. And that hurt her. It really did. But as she grew older, I always told her, Amber, you have to learn to love anyway. Everyone has pain. Everyone's carrying it differently. And not everyone knows the right way to cope with it. And so, people that aren't taught, especially, when you're looking at everyone around you, not everybody's had the best parenting skills, So without good parenting, without people to teach them a spiritual directive and say, listen, this is the way things are done, and this is the way that you should cope, and this is the right partner to look for, and this is how to deal with things yourself. A lot of parents don't talk to their kids like that, especially today. Most parents are on their phones, working extra hard to pay the bills. They come home, they're tired. They don't want to sit down and play. Their kids are talking. They'd rather talk to their partner instead of their kid. They tell them, go play with your siblings, or they want to just be left alone. And these are individuals that are exhausted, or they're just not emotionally available because everything's being taken out of them. And again, you can't blame them, but something does have to be done because, like I said, it's not an excuse. So for every person, that grew up feeling alone for whatever their parents' excuse was or reason, it starts with beginning to see the person that has hurt you as a victim too. And then you learn to forgive, and you say, well, this person, for example, wasn't there for me because they were a single mom. Maybe there are a lot of single moms out there. I'm lucky; I have a lot of support right now, and I get to work from home to see my children. But there are a lot of mothers out there that they have to work 2 jobs outside the house, and their kids are left at home as early as 8 years old, and they don't know what their children are doing, and those kids go to school and they do bad things, and they're looking for love and attention in all the wrong ways because they have the TV and the phone and the music as a babysitter instead of having a parent around. And that's not the mother's fault. She's in bad circumstances, but something, has to be done. But it's really important to teach your children a little bit of everything and to take as much time as you can. And then you can schedule time off, for yourself, or take one night out of the weekend after having 15 minutes to an hour a day playing with your kids throughout the week, squeezing it in. Take one night out for yourself on the weekend. Most parents should do that if they're making the time for their kids during the week, but most parents aren't even doing that, and they are going out on the weekend, getting the babysitter, and the kids just feel like so in the background. They feel like they're just a part of the background of the story, just like pets do. Pets sit there waiting for their owner all day, only to get a couple moments of love when they finally sit down. So always be there for your children. There's always a way. But in order to really process things, you have to find the root of where everything stems from. Look where your parent may not have had enough advice, or maybe they weren't taught a certain way, or maybe they went through abuse, or maybe they had a missing absent parent. Perhaps maybe they were drug addicted, or maybe someone had a psychological illness, and trauma does create psychological illness. There's something called PTSD, where it's called post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is something a person can't help. Like, they'll freak out like randomly. They're very insecure, very jumpy, very anxious people, and that's often a part of trauma in any case, and especially with neglect, because neglect is a form of trauma. Physical hugs, love, and attention, that's all important, but it's not about your life. It's about your children's lives, because you brought them into the world. You didn't bring them here to please you. And that's the thing that most parents don't get, is that they think they had the kids because it makes them happy, but they have a life to live too, and they should grow up being fulfilled as well. And it's the same in any relationship. But most people that did grow up with neglect have a really poor outlook on relationships, and they tend to look at life later on as in a very unrealistic manner. I know that I chose to serve the Lord. I wanted to be a mother, so I only did the things that I knew I wanted to do, what I felt comfortable doing. I felt love in everybody. Why not? Why do we have to put it into relationships? Why can't we just love every person that touches our lives, touches our hearts, and try to give attention to everybody as much as we can? That's the way I looked at it. If I wasn't given enough love or attention, I have plenty of it to give, and that's it. But there are people out there that have suffered from neglect that do try to be overreaching. They try to please everybody. You can't please everybody, and not everyone is going to be pleased. There's people that you'll do everything right, and it'll still not be anything right, and you'll drive yourself crazy at the end of the day, trying to please them. For what reason? You're just bringing the rejection and the hurt to yourself, because most of the time, people that are good-hearted and do-gooders will attract people that will just take advantage of them all day. So always remember, you can't make everybody happy. You can make yourself happy. Giving love should always make you happy. Don't hold on to the neglect or the pain. Just do the opposite, and know that there can be forgiveness and letting go, because the person that hurt you probably was hurt first anyway. Don't hang on to it. It's not worth it. And just remember, love is an even exchange. It's not one-sided. And just because you weren't given a lot doesn't mean that you're owed a lot, and it doesn't mean that you owe a lot either. You have to balance things out. There's all different forms of hurt and pain in this world. I hope we can explore them all together. But for now, just keep in mind, healing starts there, and give yourself the life that you deserve. No one's going to give it to you. And that's the beauty of the spiritual path. And you can break the ugly cycles of hurt by knowing the right things to do in your life right now. And that means also looking at relationships, being a parent, being a pet owner, being a friend, as being two-sided, not one. Namaste, everybody. If you need any help later on, you know where to reach me. I offer life coaching. I also have courses in like Tantra that are going to go into this subject a little bit deeper. But I hope today that I was able to speak to you. Healing isn't impossible. It starts with forgiveness and understanding. And it starts with making changes for yourself and to get away from toxic patterns that you keep yourself in, and to start moving toward better people that look at life with that balancing, hey, love's got to be a two-way street here. And make sure that you give all the love that you can with unconditional love, because if you don't expect anything in return, then you can't get hurt. Bye.